4 balls. That's all it took to end an England team's grip on a World Cup they thought they'd already won, in a stadium of 80,000 people who watched it happen in real time and still couldn't quite believe it. 19 runs needed, 6 balls left, and England still lost, not slowly, not painfully over an hour, but inside less than a minute. A ball disappearing over the rope, then another, then another, then a fourth. Same bowler standing in the same spot, same batsman swinging the same way, the same result repeating 4 times in a row like the match had gotten stuck on a loop. This wasn't bad luck, and it wasn't a batsman simply having the innings of his life. It was the final domino in a decision made 11 overs earlier, when England's captain took his most economical bowler out of the attack after a single over, and simply never brought him back. What happens when a captain runs out of the right options in the 1 over that decides the entire World Cup? Kolkata, April 2016. Eden Gardens, one of the loudest, most intense cricket grounds on the planet, packed to its very edges for the final of the ICC World 2020. England against West Indies. 2 teams that had each already won this exact tournament once before, both hungry for a second title, both convinced, walking into the ground that night, that this was finally their year to be remembered as the best in the world at this format. Darren Sammy won the toss for West Indies, the 10th time in a row he had called it correctly in T20 international cricket, a run of luck so long it had become a running joke inside the Caribbean camp. And exactly as they had all tournament, West Indies sent England in to bat first. It wasn't just superstition. It was a deliberate, repeated pattern. Never lose the toss, always bowl first, always chase a target in front of your own crowd, always let the pressure sit on the team batting first instead of the team hunting the total. England built an innings that looked competitive without ever looking dominant. Joe Root anchored things with a composed 54, working the gaps and rotating the strike while the rest of the order searched for rhythm around him. For a while, alongside Jos Buttler, the 2 of them threatened to take the game fully away from West Indies, pushing the total towards something genuinely intimidating. But Brathwaite and Dwayne Bravo, West Indies' 2 most experienced all-rounders, dragged the innings back under control in the back half, sharing wickets through the middle overs and choking off the boundaries England needed to really accelerate. England eventually finished on 155 for 9. Solid. Defendable on paper, but nowhere near as commanding as it had looked 20 minutes earlier. Here's the detail that almost nobody talks about when this match comes up. In just the 2nd over of England's bowling innings, unusually early before the game had settled into any kind of rhythm, Captain Ian Morgan made an unconventional call. He threw the new ball not to one of his frontline seamers, but to Joe Root, a batting all-rounder who was, at best, a part-time bowling option. It looked like a hunch. It looked, briefly, like the kind of gamble captains make and then quietly regret. Instead, it paid off immediately and spectacularly. Root removed both West Indies openers inside that single over. Chris Gayle, one of the most destructive batsmen the format has ever produced, and Johnson Charles alongside him, finishing with figures of 2 wickets for just 9 runs. It was, by a wide margin, the most economical and most dangerous over England bowled anywhere in the entire match. West Indies had been blown open before they'd even found their footing, and then Morgan never turned to him again. Not in the next over, not in the tense, wobbling middle overs, not anywhere near the death when the game was tightest and the value of a proven wicket-taker was highest. Root simply stood at the boundary rope for the rest of the innings, his best spell of the tournament sitting unused in the bag. The moment that should have brought Root back into the attack arrived early. West Indies collapsed to 11 runs for 3 wickets inside the 3rd over of their chase, rattled, unsettled, exactly the kind of fragile position where a captain reaches instinctively for the bowler who is in the form of his life. Morgan didn't reach for him. Instead, Marlon Samuels and Bravo steadied the innings together, building a defiant, match-defining stand that added 75 crucial runs and slowly dragged the equation back in West Indies' favor, over by patient over. By the time the match reached its final stretch, West Indies needed 31 runs off the last 13 balls, then 19 off the final 6. Still tight, still very much England's game to win if they made the right call at the right moment. But when Morgan finally had to name a bowler for the last over of a World Cup final, with everything on the line, Root wasn't a realistic option anymore. He hadn't bowled a single ball since the second over of the entire match. The only genuine choice left standing was Ben Stokes. Stokes was a good bowler, talented, competitive, a fighter by nature. But he wasn't built, in that specific tournament, in that specific form, to be England's designated death overs enforcer. By the 20th over of a World Cup final, England's own bowling rotation had quietly narrowed itself down to exactly one name, and that name now had to face Carlos Brathwaite with a trophy hanging on every single delivery. The first ball, 6. Brathwaite backed away towards square leg and swung Stokes clean over long on, the ball disappearing into a crowd that hadn't even finished processing what it had just seen. The second ball, 6 again, flatter this time, driven brutally over mid-wicket before most of the fielders had even reacted. The third ball followed the same pattern, 6, and by now, Eden Gardens had stopped behaving like a cricket ground entirely. It had become one continuous wall of noise. The fourth ball disappeared too. 19 runs required at the start of the over. 24 scored in 4 deliveries. The World Cup final was effectively finished with 2 legal balls still left to bowl. Stokes sank to his knees on the outfield, head buried in his hands, physically unable to process what had just unfolded in less than a minute of cricket. Morgan reached him first, pulling him back up, telling reporters afterward that the responsibility wasn't Stokes's to carry alone, that the whole team shared in both the wins and the losses together. It was a generous, captain's answer, and Morgan wasn't wrong to defend his bowler publicly. But sitting quietly underneath that public defense was a tactical truth nobody in the England camp seemed eager to say out loud. The plan that put Stokes in that exact position, facing that exact bowler in that exact over, had effectively been set 11 overs earlier, the moment England's most economical bowling performance of the night was used once and then filed away and never touched again. West Indies became the first team in the tournament's history to win the World 2020 twice. Darren Sammy lifted the trophy under the Kolkata floodlights. Brathwaite, who had already contributed 3 wickets earlier in the innings before finishing unbeaten on 34, became a permanent fixture in cricket highlight reels forever after. 4 swings of the bat that erased an entire tournament's worth of harder, quieter work from the collective memory of anyone watching. England didn't lose the World Cup in 4 balls. They lost it somewhere in the 11 overs between Joe Root's brilliant, unrepeated opening spell and Ian Morgan's final call under pressure. The long, quiet gap where the team's sharpest bowling option sat unused on the boundary, and the only man left standing when it mattered most wasn't the one the situation actually demanded.